package. That's what I want. Oh, I'm impressed you snuck that in, though. I don't know if it's hard to change kits. Gotcha. Got it. Oh yeah, yeah. Good morning. Welcome to Ashworth. We're so happy you're here joining us this morning, that you would take time out of this day, this Super Bowl Sunday, to come and join us. We're grateful for that. We're going to start off with worship. I know people are still coming in and gathering, but if you're able, would you stand with us as we sing and worship?
Troubles are a little too heavy. Who can I turn to share the weight? When my mind is cluttered and cloudy, who can I turn to clear the way? Who can I turn to? I turn to you. I won't lean on my own understanding. I will let go, follow empty-handed. You say your yoke is easy. You say your burden's light. So I let you lead me for all my life. My past is still trying to haunt me. Who can I turn to give me grace? When my future is a little uncertain, uncertain. Who can I turn to today? Who can I turn to? I turn to you, yes. I won't lean on my own understanding. I will let go, follow empty-handed. You say your yoke is easy. You say your burden's light. So I'll let you lead me for all my life. So I'll let you lead me for all my life. All right, sing this out. I know this is real. Here we go. Some days are long, some work is tough. Whatever I lack, you make it up. Your yoke is easy, your burden is light. You give me life, you give me love. Whenever I'm dry, you fill my cup. Your yoke is easy, your burden is light. Come on, sing it out. Some days are long, some work is tough. Whatever I lack, you make it up. Your yoke is easy, your burden is light. You give me life, you give me love. Whenever I'm dry, you fill my cup. Your yoke is easy, your burden is light. I won't lean on my own understanding. I will let go, follow empty-handed. You say your yoke is easy. You say your burden's light. So I'll let you lead me for all my life. I know your yoke is easy. I know your burden's light. So I'll let you lead me for all my life. Amen.
Well, good morning and welcome. You can go ahead and take a seat.
Go Bears.
Good news. That is good news. We're so glad you're here this morning and excited to worship with you online or in person. My name is Liz and I'm on staff here at the church. Welcome. If it's your first time visiting or watching online, we're especially glad you're here and just want to get the chance to know you, get to know maybe what brought you here this morning, or open the line of communication if you have any questions for us. So if that's the case, take a look at the seats in front of you. You may find a new here card. It's kind of a greenish blue color. Or you can also head to new.ashworth.church. Take maybe 30 seconds or so to fill that out so we can follow up with you. Thank you for coming, and maybe you get you a little more plugged in if you're interested in that. For every card we receive, we give a $5 donation to DMark, our local food pantry, on your behalf, just so that you know we're glad you're here and it actually made a tangible difference in our community as well. Now, I don't know about you if you've been participating in our 28-day digital fast, but it's been really hard and really good. It's so funny because Garrett and I actually lost our remote like a week or two ago. So even if we wanted to watch TV, well, we found a way around it. But even if we wanted to, it is a little more difficult. But it has been really good. We've loved hearing stories of people, waiting in a doctor's office and not being able to scroll through your phone. That's hard to do. Or maybe you have extra time in the morning. You have 30 extra minutes where you normally would be checking your emails, checking text messages, but instead you're spending it with Jesus, and that's awesome. If you haven't decided yet to join in on the digital fast but want to in some way, please consider it. I think as we've been talking about idols, technology in particular has gripped me, just the hold it has on my own personal life. I know Pastor Brent wrote just a little insert, a blog in our newsletter this week about how we're often on autopilot and just going through our phones. This week, I moved my apps like Facebook and Instagram to another folder, and I find my fingers just like going towards it. And so I know for me, it's been a really helpful break, and I hope it has been for you too.
The best part has been I put my auto reply, thanks, I'm taking a digital fast. Please send all correspondence to Brent. And so hopefully you're enjoying all of.
Maybe it's not an excuse to like not respond to messages, but I love the thought.
I'm not responding to anything for a month.
Yes. But as we think about that, like we mentioned, it is Super Bowl Sunday. And this is an opportunity for us to actually maybe engage with technology in a way that doesn't isolate us, but brings us closer to community. So today, if you don't have plans, maybe consider, is there someone even at Ashworth or maybe a neighbor in your neighborhood who you could invite over to watch football? It doesn't have to be a big deal, but just a way to engage with technology in a healthy way rather than letting it rule our lives. So we hope you've been enjoying that in some form or fashion, or at least getting closer to Jesus through it. We do have another opportunity for connection for the women in the room coming up. We'll have a women's coffee on Tuesday, February 25th at 9 a.m. Mark your calendars for that. We're going to be at Barista's Bouquet, which is a newer coffee shop just down the road. It's on the corner of 60th and Ashworth. It's so cute. They sell wildflowers and have like homemade syrups and lattes. It's so fun. So if you do have time, we're going to be spending a morning there just connecting, catching up on how we're doing. So any and all women are welcome to that as well. We hope you join us. Okay. As we continue in worship this morning, would you join me in prayer? God, as maybe we make a little more space in our lives, Jesus, would we also make room for you to speak? Would you quiet our hearts and our minds, our souls? Would we be in tune with your spirit, encouraging us, giving us life and peace, true life that only you can bring, Jesus? Would you soften our hearts? Would you make us tender towards your word this morning? We're grateful to be here. We love you, Jesus. Amen.
You can stand with us as we continue. And who thought I'd find you at the lowest place? Who thought you'd feel me in the crowd? Who knew you'd make good of my mistakes? You're nothing like I thought you were. You're better. What a God, what a God. 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 And I thought you'd show for perfection. So what kind of God looks for the lost? They say it's over for a sinner. Oh, but you say no, it's not, no, it's not. You say, no, it's not, no, it's not. What a God, what a God. What a God, what a God. Oh, what a God, what a God. If the highest place I reach is at your feet, then I've done it all. If the best thing that I've seen is your glory, then I've seen it all. Your love has changed my life, forever satisfied. God, you are my everything. If the highest place I reach is at your feet, then I've done it all. If the best thing that I see is your glory, then I've seen it all. Your love has changed my life, forever satisfied. God, you are my everything. One word, if one word is the only thing you speak, then I've heard it all. If I feel your heart and never see your hand, I still have it all. No treasure of this life could ever satisfy. You are my everything. Oh God, you are my everything. God, you are my everything. What a God, what a God. 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 If the highest place I reach is at your feet, then I've done it all. If the best thing that I see is your glory, then I've seen it all. Your love has changed my life, forever satisfied. You are my if one word is the only thing you speak, then I've heard it all. If I feel your heart and never see your hand, I still have it all. No treasure of this life could ever satisfy. God, you are my everything. Oh, you are my everything. Oh God, you are my everything. You are my everything. We praise you today, God, because we know who you are and what you've done. We're going to introduce a new song here called I've Witnessed It that hits on, I think, something really important in my life. I don't know if this is true. Someone that knows more can fact check me. I've heard the most frequent command in the Bible is do not fear. And then the second most is to remember. I don't know if that's completely right, but I know that there's an importance in remembering, and that's what this song is all about. And before we get into it, I want to take a moment to remember. And maybe this is something really small in your life this week that you were grateful for, that God has done. Or maybe it's something that in your story has been a turning point or an answer to prayer. Whatever that is, let's sit and remember for a moment. Psalm 77 says, will the Lord reject forever? Will he never show his favor again? Has his unfailing love vanished forever? Has his promise failed for all time? Has God forgotten to be merciful? Has he in anger withheld his compassion? Then I thought, to this I will appeal, the years when the Most High stretched out his right hand I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your miracles of long ago. I will consider all your works and meditate on all your mighty deeds. And why I have found for myself this idea of remembering is so important is that God himself, in saying who he is, he says, I am Yahweh. And for us, we say he is Yahweh. He is. So he is all of the things of old, all of the things yesterday, and all of the things throughout our life. He never has changed and never will. So that is what we cling to in those promises.
When I was lost and all alone, your presence was where I found home. You were there and you're here right now. In every high and every low, you never left me without hope. You were good and you're good right now. I've witnessed your faithfulness. I've seen you breathe life with it. So I'll pour out my praise again. You're worthy, God, you're worthy of all of it. Your promises never fail. I got stories I live to tell. So I'll pour out my praise again. You're worthy, God, you're worthy of all of it. You left the throne and chose the cross, laid down your life to rescue us. The Savior then, the Savior now. But even death was not the end. You conquered hell so I could live. Resurrecting then, resurrecting now. Resurrecting then, resurrecting now. I've witnessed your faithfulness. I've seen you breathe life with it. So I'll pour out my praise again. You're worthy, God, you're worthy of all of it. Your promises never fail. I got stories I live to tell. So I'll pour out my praise again. You're worthy, God, you're worthy of all of it. You're good and I've witnessed it. You're strong and I've witnessed it. You're constant, I've witnessed it. And I'm confident I'll see it again. And yes, you love and I witnessed it. You heal and I witnessed it. You save and I've witnessed it. And I'm confident I'll see it again. Come on! You're good and I witnessed it. Yes. You're strong and I witnessed it. You're constant, I taste your faithfulness. I've seen you breathe life with it. So I'll pour out my praise again. You're worthy, God, you're worthy of all of it. Your promises never fail. I got stories I live to tell. So I'll pour out my praise again. You're worthy, God, you're worthy of all of it.
God, thank you for those things that I remember, the places where I've felt hopeless, and you have turned that into new life. To the places where I've felt like nothing but a failure, and you called me a son. Where you still tell me day after day, I love you. And I forget so quickly, God, but I just want to remember that you still love me every day, God. I thank you for who you are and that we can cling to that truth. You can have a seat.
Hey, it's time for Ashworth Kids. If you're between the ages of 2 and 5 years, or kindergarten through 5th grade, we would love for you to join us. Please make your way to the back of the sanctuary and then into the foyer, where one of our children's ministry volunteers will be there to meet you and take you down to our basement level. Parents, you can pick up your children from there after the service.
All right, good morning. Everybody, it's good to see you all. Man, I like that new song. I do have to tell you.
I feel bad being like, hi, here I am again.
Do we want to ask them if they feel bad?
You guys like me, right?
That's right. They like
Don't
you.
ask that. That's for
Liz talked about it. I'm just curious. How's that digital fast going? Okay, I see some thumbs up. Amy, you mentioned earlier in the week, you're like, you go to bed earlier?
I do. Matthew
weren't
reads
the
a
only
book and
one.
I go to bed. And I was telling somebody this morning, I was confessing, I'm like, I think I was feeling like withdrawal symptoms, like genuinely. Like, I'm like, something feels off in my life. Like, I'm anxious and I'm like, I want to like go to Instagram and scroll and that'll make me feel better, you know? And I don't have that. So it's taken a few days for me to like decompress and find other ways that are actually healthy and like a little bit, shopping,
Like shopping,
you know,
going to no.
other things, maybe breathing, praying, you know, taking a walk. I've been outside more. Like,
I did have the question, who in the world decided winter would be a great time to do this? Probably not the best time to do a digital fast, right? When we can't get outside as much. I was talking with Jill this morning. Jill was saying, I read 2 books this week. Anybody willing to say, I'm finding more free time than I thought I knew I had? Anybody? Okay, me, absolutely. That's where I am. More free time than I thought possible, which is sad because that tells me exactly how locked into this I was. So let me tell you, if you're going through it, keep going. It's not easy. The withdrawal symptoms will get easier, I think. But here's the other side of it. Don't do this alone. Don't do it alone. Find somebody, talk to somebody, share with them. Find somebody who's doing it as well and share stories. Talk about, have somebody to text with technology and say, I really want to do this. Help, pray for me, whatever. Be willing to reach out and share this. This isn't something we do alone. It's something we do together in community. So anyway, keep going. It's really good. All right, so we're now to the end of our series we've been in, Counterfeit Gods. This is another one I think I didn't realize when we had planned on this series that I think it was going to hit as, well, it's probably not a good way to describe it. It's hard, challenging.
Hard, that's
maybe?
a better word.
Yeah.
I don't think people have enjoyed it.
It hits different. Again, like the digital fast, I think maybe if you're like me, many of us probably have walked out some weeks going, okay, maybe that's a bigger thing in my life than I realized. And so we've had to spend a little time working through it. But rest assured, today's it. We're going to stop talking about idols next week. Next week, we're going to Jesus. So see, it's going to be great, right? It's going to be a series called Before I Go. We're looking at the final things that Jesus said, not on the cross, but that last bit of time he was with his disciples and that prayer right before his arrest. And this will lead us up to Easter. So if you want to join with us, if you have some free time in this digital fast, read John 14 through 17. That's where we're going to be for the next several weeks, so you can join us there. Amy and I were talking this week, though, there were probably a lot of other idols we could have discussed in this series. I mean, there's a lot of things we didn't talk about. You're welcome. Things like politics, but, I mean, does anybody really want to talk about politics anymore? No, we're all tired of that. Identity, pleasure, sex, youth, health, independence, and even religion were all things that have the potential to become idols. And today, though, we're going to end with one that I know may be a little controversial. Good, because I love to lean into controversy occasionally.
That's why I'm here.
That's why she's here to mellow me out a little bit, to give the other perspective, right, Amy? We're going to talk about the idol of family. The idol of family. And you may even be asking, how is this possible? Can family be an idol?
Yeah, just a few weeks ago, even when you were just previewing what we're gonna talk about in this series, you mentioned family as an idol. Yeah. And I heard murmurings from someone saying, I question that. Can family actually be an idol? Yeah.
I
do love them.
Yes. Yeah, what do you guys think? Think about that for a moment. When you think about family, can family be an idol? Yeah? You guys with me? You guys think we can? I see some good heads shaking, yeah. Yeah, it's a difficult one to think about, though, right? Because everything, at least in my experience, most of my church experience, I would have said no. In fact, family was the opposite. Family was supposed to be almost idol-like, elevated to this position where, especially the American idea of the nuclear family, you know, mom and dad, 2.5 kids, you know, that's what we strive for. That's what we are all, that's where God exists. You know, if you want to be closer to God. So singles, I'm very sorry, you know, get hitched, because there's no real relationship with Jesus until you get married. In fact, you were sharing
Lord
this
have mercy. Okay, this morning, I was telling Brent about this. Matthew and I took a little road trip this weekend, and I was asking him about this, and he's like, you know what's interesting? He became a Christian like in his early 20s, got really involved in this church, not this church, a church, and had a mentor, and he was really, you know, following God, like so excited about being a follower of Jesus. And he went to him and he said, what's up with the family thing? He's like, it seems like everybody here is like really excited about God, but he's like, there's like a leveling up, it feels like, where people are like, you got to get married, you got to find your wife and have kids. And he was genuinely like, what is that? Is that a thing in the Bible that I didn't know about, where it's like you follow God and then you've got to find your spouse and you have kids? And that's like, he was genuinely like, tell me, what is this thing? And he said, even just in his own words, he was like, I was identifying the idol of family already. Like I was picking up on it in the church environment that he was in.
Yeah, we elevate it to a status. And we just have to remember what we've been saying every week. What is an idol? An idol is anything, even the good things that we make the ultimate things, that we even deify. Those things that we put on the same level with or even above Jesus. And I do believe that sometimes, especially in our culture, American culture, this is very easy for us to do. In fact, what we have to do really is to even define some things about family. Because I think if we're not careful, one of the blessings we have here at Ashworth is we have a diverse church, which is great. As I look among the crowd today, I love the diversity. But I also know the American experience, and I know the American culture that highlights certain things. And so we need to begin with, what is family? What is family? What is it that we're even talking about? And we're going to define it, and we're going to talk about how it has been distorted. Because even when you begin to look at the American family, I did a little research this week.
The white American.
Yeah, the white American family. The family structure. Think about when you think of family and you think of that family structure, what does that look like to you? For most of us, it's my house, right? It's Brent and Carrie, not my house for all of you guys, not 7 children, but, now we're kind of normal. We've gotten rid of several, and so we're down to like 3 in the house. So,
Just to clarify, they moved out. You didn't get rid of them.
Got rid of, moved out. Either way, they're not there anymore. So, But for us, it's it's mom and dad, 2 kids. That's our existence, And we do allow for, we kind of look down on, though, singles, single parents. Blended families are much more common, but there's this idea of what that perfect family is. But that's just kind of an American idea, because even in other cultures, what do you find in the other cultures? You probably have more experience with this.
Yeah, well, even non-white American culture, there's lots of cultures in America where families are much larger than us 4 and no more. Your wife and all your kids or whatever. It's more like I've got my mom living with me, and my aunt lives with me, and my cousins, and there's a much broader sense. And then around the world, much of the rest of the world, a family is much larger. It's like you have generations living under one household, or a sense of responsibility for generations. And it does seem like there is something particular about white American culture, and then even in the church, about husband, wife, children. Your nuclear family is the kind of end all be all. Yeah.
And even as you look at that, because other cultures are used to having not just us 4 and no more, but being extended, you have, like, I was looking, the role of elders, In our culture, in my culture, I'll say, what do we do with our old people? Sorry, old people, you get old, we're going to ship you off to an independent living center, or, we're going to put you in a nursing home or whatever. That's what we do. And independence all the way through death is very important, and it's even, as you get there, it's what we desire. No, I don't want to be a burden on my children. But in many Asian, Middle Eastern societies, elders aren't treated that way. They're respected. They're cared for within the family home. And that for us probably seems like, really? I got to take care of those people? Yeah, this is just kind of the idea. It's not just this very small thing. It's bigger. It's broader. Even child-rearing practices, I was looking at this, and one of the things it said is, from an early age in American culture, we emphasize independence and self-reliance. But many other cultures, Asian cultures, African families, they focus on collectivism. They focus on obedience and respect for authority. And I thought, what does all this mean? And it said, children are taught from an early age that you are part of something bigger than yourselves. You're part of a larger unit, this family, this community. And what you do as a child even affects the broader community. I thought, man, we certainly don't teach that, do we? We teach independence and be independent and do your own thing. And I think what's critical for us to understand as we talk about family is that it's not a monolithic idea around the world, that what we see, what we experience here isn't necessarily what other cultures are doing, and it's not necessarily the right way or the only way. We've got to acknowledge, we have a tendency, let me speak personally, I have a tendency to be very arrogant when it comes to the way I do things. And so the way I do family is the best way to do family. And we can even look down on or, think negatively about, well, when you become as sophisticated as we are, you will become and get to the place where we are because we've got this figured out. And yet when I look at our culture, when I look at even what's happening in families around us today, especially in our culture, can we really say, well, yeah, we've got this figured out? In fact, I think...
Is it Dr. Phil that says, how's that working for you? It's true. You look at the where we are in our families today. I'm like, is it working for us?
Yeah. It's not.
To idolize our families and have only your nuclear family be kind of the end all be all for your community.
Yeah, and we lead with this family first mentality, this us 4 and no more, and it seems good and it seems right, and then we think to ourselves, what could possibly go wrong when we land here? What could possibly go wrong when we isolate our family unit individually to ourselves without thinking about the culture, broader culture around us, or the broader community around us, and we just kind of keep us isolated? What could possibly go wrong? I think we're seeing what could possibly go wrong, aren't we? I think as American culture, we've been in this phase for at least 40 to 50 years. I mean, this family first, maybe coming out of World War II, even the rise of the suburban neighborhood and privacy fences and all these things. I think this is where we've seen things land. And this idea of what the perfect family looks like and how we endorse this, or how we teach it, has been something the church has been, I would say, guilty of for a while. We've founded ministries on it, and there are thousands of books telling you how you should do this. And the problem with this is that all these things, we make this the ultimate objective. This American nuclear family becomes it, to come before and above everything else. We look down on and maybe not say it, but we kind of think we've got it figured out. And we just kind of think this is it. But it's not, is it? Because even in our own culture, we were talking this morning with some folks, and we've created pockets of, well, Matthew's statement, I think, is probably critical to this. What do we do as singles in the room? What do we do when you say your ultimate objective is find that spouse? What do you do there?
I have a very dear friend who's single and in her mid-40s, and she was doing ministry overseas for years in Cambodia, and loved it, had such a rich experience. And then it was time for her to come back. Her family's here. Her nuclear family is here, her mom and her dad. And so she comes back to the U.S. a number of years ago, and she struggled so much. She bought a house. She did all the things she thought she should do. And I remember talking to her and walking with her in that season. We kind of became family to her here. She'd come over, and I remember her talking about how, wow, it's really hard to be a single, middle-aged woman in a non-communal culture. And she's a Christian. She's deeply connected to her faith community, and still, she was like, she literally sold her house and was like, I'm going to move back to Cambodia. She's like, it's too hard to be in a culture where everything is about the individual and about your very small family, because she's like, I can't break into any of those places, and I constantly feel like I'm an outsider. And she's like, in a communal culture, nobody's going to let me be alone. You know, people are just, I'm going to be invited, I'm going to be welcomed, I'm going to be in lots of spaces where people are going to intentionally seek me out. And here I feel more like, ooh, what's wrong with her, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And so we lean into this idea, and I think the biggest problem with this mentality, this family first mentality, is that we buy into the idea if we do certain things, if we believe certain ways, then everything's going to work out. You just, has anybody read that book before where you follow these 5 steps and you will have the perfect kids? Or if you're single, follow these 5 steps and you'll find a spouse, or all this. Then what happens? Has anybody ever seen that not work out? You all don't have to raise your hands, because I think we've all been there. We're not able to follow these steps because we're all unique and we're all different. And all we've done, I think, is even within the church, is we have bought into this idea of the prosperity gospel for the family. It's not about money, it's about the prosperity of the family. Well, you do these 3 things and your kids will, they'll be perfect, and they'll have straight teeth, and they'll always obey, and they'll follow Jesus forever, Parents that have paid for braces understand the straight teeth comment. I mean, that's what we've done, and we hold on to it, and we hope. Yes, I'm going to follow this, and then what happens when it doesn't? We're left kind of a lot of heartburn and a lot of heartache in the process. And here's one thing I think we have to realize, and we know this, but we forget it, is that the pressure to create the perfect family is just too great a burden for anything or anyone to bear. I mean, it's like this. When you get married and you have that expectation of the perfect spouse, they can't hold up to that, can they? And if you don't learn to let them out of those expectations, you're headed for a miserable marriage and divorce, because no one can stand up under that level of pressure, and your family can't either.
Yeah, now you're speaking to me. Okay, we all know that Matthew Becker is nearly the perfect spouse, but I literally, best decision I've ever made in my life, Okay, but I was thinking this week, wrestling with this. What is my idol, even in the American family? How do I see this in my own life? And that is one of the ways. I'm like, oh, I can easily begin to see my spouse as God. And just in the way that I'm like dependent on him. I'm
meet
like,
my need.
Yeah.
That you do what you do to
things
meet my
happen and I'm like, I run to him. You know, things, I need something, he'll catch me, you know. And it's a gift. Actually, Matthew means gift from God. So cute. And it is a gift that God, there are, you know, when you have a spouse, maybe it is a gift from God. And there are ways that God intends for you to carry each other's burdens and bear one another's burdens. But there are many times where that can become distorted. And I begin to be like, manage all my things and be my person. And when really God's like, hey, hi, I am actually God. And run to me and tell me. And also there are times where he's like, reach out. You have needs. You don't need to just put all those on one person. You have a community around you who wants to support you, who wants to love you, who wants to listen to you, who wants to step in. And there's so often when we even keeping our own needs and all those things, we put all that pressure, or I put all that pressure in my one small, tiny little circle, you know. So check on Matthew after the service.
And what we love to do in church as well is we like to talk about biblical, right? And we love the Bible. It's the guide for life. It's our authority. We believe that. But even when we think about family, have you ever heard this idea of you need a biblical family? Anybody heard that? Yes. Can I ask you a question? Which one? I mean, would you like Abraham, who tried to pass his wife off not once but twice as his sister, so she ended up in some guy's harem? That a biblical family? What about David and Bathsheba? We know that story, right? Is that a biblical family? What about Solomon? 700 wives and 300 concubines. Concubine's a great church word, right? Anybody know what that is? It's like a secondary wife. Just doesn't quite get all the privileges and benefits of a wife, just there for the man's pleasure. And now let's just figure out which man came up with this idea, because we know it wasn't a woman that thought concubine would be a great thing, you know. Which biblical family do we look at? Because the Bible shows us more of the screwed up families than the families that have it all together. I mean, we don't see a lot even in the New Testament as far as the model for family, because Jesus called Peter to like follow him. And what about poor Peter's wife? We know he had one because his mother-in-law got sick and healed. What's that about? Doesn't really fit in our nice little box, does it? What is going on here? We've got to stop and we've got to say, what's happening with this? Now, I realize that by this point in the message I wrote down, you might be thinking, why do they hate families? We don't hate families. We don't hate families. In fact, some of us keep expanding ours for some reason. But the reality is we have to see family as a gift and not as a God. And that's a big difference. Family is a gift and not as a God. And as I look across the cultural landscape, I see families wrapped up in themselves, and I see this greater culture at large. I wonder if isolating ourselves from those only related to us by blood might not be what God had in mind, might not be the thing that God was planning for us to be. In fact, a phrase I've used for a long time is the idolization of the American family. This is not new for this message. Amy's had to hear it for a decade.
For years.
Yes. I'm wondering if the idolization of the American family is not incredibly short-sighted and missed out on something truly great. Yeah. And the reason I say that is because let's just turn to some very difficult and challenging words that Jesus had to say on this topic. First, let's look at Matthew chapter 12. We'll just read the passage. It says, while Jesus was still talking to the crowd, his mother and brothers stood outside wanting to speak to him. Someone told him, your mother and brothers are standing outside wanting to speak to you. He replied to them, who is my mother? And where are my brothers? Mothers, how would you feel if your child said that about you? Feeling good? No, you're going to go in there, you're going to walk in that room, you're going to grab him by the ear, and you're going to say, I'll show you who your mother is. Yeah. Says, pointing to his disciples, he said, here are my mother and my brothers, for whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and my sister and my mother. Anybody surprised Jesus said that? Seems a little rude, doesn't it? Seems a little disrespectful. One commentary I read this week said, if this doesn't deeply shock you, you didn't read it right. Go back and reread it. This should shock you. And imagine what his mother and brothers probably felt hearing this in this moment.
And even, again, like you'd said earlier, we are not anti-family.
No.
But what we see here, and I think this particular moment where Jesus says, who are my mother and my brothers? The people who do the will of God are my mother. He is expanding our view of family. And I think that's so crucial and something that I've had to go back to over and over, the expansion of my view of family. And not as there's even a part of it that's like, oh, I need to think this way. No, it's a gift that God gives us. We have an expansion of our view of family because we're in the kingdom of God. Our family increases. Yeah. And the people who are my mother and I have lots of spiritual moms and spiritual dads, and I have lots of spiritual sisters and brothers. We even joked about, we're twinning this morning, spiritual brother and sister. Okay, we have a new view of family, and it's much bigger. Isn't that a gift?
Yeah.
But we miss out because we're so obsessed and focused on our small circle of who we should be in charge of and who we should be getting our needs met from. And we're missing out. Yeah.
And Jesus, this isn't the only place Jesus said crazy stuff either. I mean, you're right, Amy. He's expanding it just real quickly. Matthew 10, Jesus is making the statement. He says, don't suppose I've come to bring peace. I've come to bring a sword. And we think about that maybe in political conquest and colonization. Wrong. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about people who come to follow Jesus. This will be something that could split families, something that could come between a blood relation because of the desire to know and follow Jesus. It's putting Jesus as everything to us and realizing that sometimes that may even cause us to leave our blood relations behind because they're not with us in that. Or even this crazy exchange where somebody wanted to praise Mary at one point and for having such an amazing son. Luke 11, it says, as Jesus was saying some things, a woman in the crowd called out and said, blessed is the mother who gave you birth and nursed you. What a nice thing to say about Mary. And Jesus says, blessed rather are those who hear the word of God and obey it. I mean, again, if we're not getting somewhat offended by the words of Jesus, we may not be understanding exactly what Jesus is saying. Jesus is saying, look, I'm not saying family's not important. In fact, if you look at his ministry, the wedding at Cana, where he turns water into wine, that is an endorsement of marriage. When Jesus is dying on the cross, as he's looking out at his mother, as he's looking out at his disciple John. And what does he say to them? He says, mother, this is your son, take care of this woman. He is making sure that his mother is going to be cared for. He's not throwing these things away. As Amy said, he's expanding them. He's broadening this. In fact, author Fleming Rutledge writes that Jesus is setting aside the blood relationship in order to create this much wider family. And so I ask the question, if that's the case, if we see baptism, the thing that brings us into the family, that identifies us with the family, being that symbol, wouldn't we begin to even believe that water is thicker than blood? That the waters of baptism are thicker than the blood? And can you feel that tension here? Can you feel that tension that exists? Good. We should. We, as the people who follow Jesus, need to feel this tension.
It makes me think of even we do child dedications. We don't do that as just like a birth announcement, like we're excited. And I think we do, though. I mean, I think that sometimes that's how we see it. Rather, during those times, you'll always look at us and say, okay, it's your turn. Yeah. Do you all agree to help raise this child and to love them and support them and pray for them? Do you do that? And it's we do.
Mean that. We just meet here on Sunday morning.
Right. And in our baptism, why do we do that in front of each other? It's a symbol saying, I'm ready to follow Jesus with my whole life, and I'm doing it as a community. Otherwise, we'd go do all these private baptisms. Yeah. We do it communally because that's how we're intended to follow Jesus. And other, but you do it with each other, and we're helping each other raise each other's kids, and we're helping raise each other spiritually, and it's part of the deal. That author used the phrase spiritual kinship, and I love that. Yeah. We have a spiritual kinship that we forget about.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we get in our minds this idea of what is great, and we can't think of anything greater. And I think family has become one of these things, that we can't think of anything better than getting married and having kids and raising successful kids and launching them into the world. And oh, look at this. And we think this is the ultimate objective. And so when we get there, we can't imagine there's anything greater or better than that. And I think what Jesus is telling us is there is. There is something better. There is something greater. That it's beyond the us for and no more. That what he's offering to us is even better than we can imagine. I mean, we've talked before about even Jesus answers a question about marriage in heaven. And somebody's like, well, who's this woman going to be married to? They followed the custom, and her husband died, and she had to marry her brother-in-law, and he died and had to marry another brother-in-law. There were 7 brothers-in-law that she had to marry. Who's she married to in heaven? And Jesus' response, we won't be married or given to marriage in heaven. And there have been people we've dealt with in ministry that have been offended by that. And like, how is that? I love my spouse. I want to be married. And it's because we can't imagine. Our minds are too limited to think beyond the here and now to understand that what Jesus is inviting us to in marriage, what Jesus is inviting us to in family is even better, even greater than anything we could possibly imagine if we will allow ourselves to lean into it. I just think about some of the struggles in the world today. I think about the challenges that families have. I mean, we have young moms here in our church, and we see sometimes there's struggle, there's difficulty. Why? Social media screws us up because there's their Instagrammable family and what that's supposed to look like. And I think, how much easier is this supposed to be when it does take a village? It does take all of us, and to have others be able to lean into those relationships and say, I've raised a kid. I've made all the mistakes. I mean, any parent in this room say, I got it all right? Absolutely not. How many of you would be the first to say, I've made all the mistakes? That's me. And you step into these relationships and you say, you don't have to do this alone. You lean in. And isn't that the way that maybe we're being invited into this by Jesus? To not, go ahead.
I was just thinking, like, I've experienced this. I mean, if we were not a part of a church, we wouldn't. We would probably live a much smaller life. But our kids, like, we're talking about who does Pearl want to invite to her birthday party? And she's like, well, probably Mr. Brent, Or she'll be like, I haven't seen Keegan for a while, Or like she'll talk about the Bradys, and they give her bags to hand out to the homeless in our neighborhood. Like, this girl, her friends are like in their 70s, 50s, 20s, and 30s,
50. Make sure you say 50 here, not 70s.
And what a gift. And I trust that. I trust that there's times where she rolls up into Mr. Brent's office and he's going to talk to her about something that she needs to talk about. And that she learns about social justice, and she's learning about things that she needs to learn about from other people who are doing this stuff in our church. And there's a way that her world is expanded. She eats Indian food because we have Indian friends, and all of these are things that happen because of church. Yeah. And I think this is actually what the church offers us if we lean in. But so often we treat the church just like everything else, and me included, who works here. I've given my life to this. And still, I want to live in my kind of easy, convenient, small world. But if we choose to lean in, we get the benefit of like a community that raises each other, raises our kids, where we rub shoulders, and we get to experience such a richer life, right? And a way richer experience with Jesus. I know Jesus more fully because I'm with people who are older and younger and different backgrounds and different colors and different experiences and different orientations, because I want to see a more fuller picture of who Jesus is. And I get to see that by all these different
And that's
folks.
scary because other people aren't like me, and we're going to rub each other the wrong way. And sometimes Amy is going to annoy me. It happens. I would never annoy her. I'm just that good. But I mean, and so we learn to live it. We avoid these structures because, well, it's easier. It's easier if I don't lean in. I don't want to have to learn what a different culture thinks. I don't want to have to learn how to eat different food. I don't want to have to learn from what other people have done. I've got this all figured out. And it's just, And so we isolate ourselves in these units and we miss what Jesus is inviting us to. And what if what we've been missing is so critically important to life? What if part of the solution to this is not thinking less of our families or thinking of our families less, but figuring out how to integrate our families into the kingdom of God, into true community with others? I mean, that's got to be part of this solution. I read a book this week called Households of Faith. The author, Emily McGowan, she writes this. She says, family first then is not a Christian principle. Rather, loyalty to Jesus and his household comes first, forming the framework within which we practice loyalty to one's household and the broader community. I was reading a story. She tells the story in the book. She talks about even in the year 200, she talks about there was a wealthy Roman mother named Perpetua. Was killed in Carthage, in a Carthage arena, in a stadium full of people while they looked on. She'd been imprisoned for being a Christian, but she refused to renounce her faith to avoid death. Her son was still an infant, and her family was horrified that she might choose to leave her child behind. Her father comes to her and begs her, says, "Daughter, have pity on my gray head. Consider your brothers, consider your mother, your aunt, consider your son who cannot live without you. Give up your stubbornness before you destroy us all." But she refused. Though she dearly loved her family and her son, her loyalty was now to Jesus alone and his community of disciples. She'd exchanged the norms of that Roman household for that of God's household. And she said, "I cannot be called anything else than what I am, a Christian." Among the group where she was in prison, she met an enslaved woman named Felicitas, who was also a new mother. Her child, a girl, was born in prison, yet upon their condemnation to be killed by the beast, these two mothers rejoiced at their good fortune. It says Perpetua reported that her body and mind submitted to this sentence with peace. She said in her journal, "God saw to it that my child no longer needed my nursing. After that, I was no longer tortured by my anxiety about my child or by pain in my breast." She was then prepared to die for her faith, entrusting her child to God's care. Sit with that story.
It's intense, Brent.
You know I like a good intense story. What do you think about that story? Yeah, that's a good response, Lynn. Whew. Yeah. But in our culture today, we almost want to look at her and say, what a fool. How could you possibly be willing to give up your infant child for following Jesus? Is it possible that there's something greater than the idols that we have created, including the idol of family? Now realize for us, this goes against the idea of, just pray this prayer and get saved. That's all you got to do. This woman, these two women, what do they model for us? There was nothing in their lives that they would let come before Jesus, up to and including their families. Are we that brave? I don't know. I don't want to answer that question. There's a quote I read this week from Russell Moore. He writes this. Talks about the gospel, the good news of Jesus. He says, the gospel doesn't distinguish between pro-family and anti-family people so much as crucified and uncrucified people. A church that focuses on the family is in line with the Bible, but a church that puts families first is not. As a matter of fact, a Christianity that puts family first will soon find itself uncomfortable with Jesus. Wow. I think even in the church, we've been guilty of making our families more important than God. And I think we're seeing tragic consequences when that happens. What are we teaching our children when everything else is more important than relationship with Jesus? I mean, and this doesn't sit from a place of, I don't get to look down on you people and say, well, I did it all right. No, I think about the times where my own kids had stuff to conflict with church events, and how many times did I not lean into the community and pulled out and did other things because I wanted them not to miss out? But what did I teach? What did I model in doing that?
And I think as you're saying that, I'm like, yes, I think putting other things before God in our families has tragic consequences. And when we actually have the foundation of Jesus and the foundation of the family of God and the expanded vision of family, we benefit. So, yes, there are consequences. On the other side, when we lean into it, there is, again, I can't say it enough, there is a richness, there is a benefit in our own lives and our families. Our families benefit.
Yes.
Our small families benefit when we are integrated into a much wider family, and when our eyes look at each other and see brother, sister, family member, sibling, and that's how we relate to each other and connect with each other. There's endless benefit. It's harder, but I believe it's so much richer.
Absolutely, I agree. One of the commentaries I read this week said, if the church takes seriously Jesus' idea of what the family is, one of its tasks is to create and nurture families that make a place for all those who want a relationship with God as Father and with one another. This requires more than sharing a pew on Sunday morning and a fellowship donut afterward. Instead, we are to allow these persons to become our parents, our children, our siblings. We're to adopt one another and accept responsibility for and commit to one another. The church is to take those who know the hurt of the world and bring them into the healing of community acceptance. And just like we've done every week, we're going to challenge you with a practice. What is the spiritual practice this time? It's hospitality. It's community. It's expanding your circle. You know how easy this is? Oh, it's hard, don't get me wrong, but you know how easy it is? You're going to eat anyway, right? Just bring somebody else along. You're going to have a meal, bring somebody else along. You're making something at home tonight, throw something out, throw an extra half in, and then throughout the day, hey, you want to join us for dinner? That's what we're talking about. Figure out ways that we can expand the circle. When we see new moms and we see them trying to figure out what new moms and dads, we lean into those. Hey, can we go have a cup of coffee? Can we just, let me help? What can I do for you? You know, these kinds of things. When we see the older people in our congregation going through challenges, hey, can I step in? I mean, on more than one occasion, I've taken my ladder to somebody's house to change a smoke detector battery because they shouldn't have been on a ladder. Glad to do it. That's what community's about, right? That's what we're talking about. It's leaning in to just being relational with one another, not letting this right here be the only interaction we have with one another. And what's possible? We get a bigger family, and just like your real family, you're going to love them, and they're going to annoy you, but they're going to bring life and richness in a way that we never, ever thought possible. Let's pray. God, this one pushes back culturally and maybe even a lot for us individually, because it's so much easier and so much more comfortable when it's me and my immediate family. But even Jesus, you said some really tough things about this one. You really pushed back heavily against this idea, letting us know that the baptism waters are much thicker than what brings us together by blood. And maybe just even this is a challenge enough today to get us to expanding our idea of who is my family. Doesn't mean we diminish what we've got. It just means we think broader and we expand the circle. We see beyond just the family we were born into to the family we were baptized into. Thank you for the support. Thank you for this community that can love and care and nurture us. And then we get the opportunity to use our gifts and our abilities to love and care and nurture others. And what a beautiful demonstration that this world could see. What a beautiful living out of the new creation that we could see and model for this world if we would be the first place that this happened.
You can stand with us as we close in worship.
Spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. so, so kind to me. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. Couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, till you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God.
Amen. Thank you for joining us this morning. Go in peace.